Let's start with a number that feels almost too small to take seriously: $100, or the equivalent in your local currency, whatever that looks like where you live. Not a windfall, not a year-end bonus, not the kind of money that changes your week, just the amount that quietly disappears across a typical weekend without you noticing where it went. That is where this story starts, not with a perfect financial plan, not with a high income or a dramatic turning point, with a single, modest decision. And what happens when you refuse to reverse it? Today I want to walk you through exactly what that decision produces over time, not in vague, motivational terms, but in real numbers, real psychology, and the kind of honest account of what the journey actually feels like that most financial content skips entirely. Let's begin. The decision. You set up an automatic transfer. $100, or its equivalent, moves from your account into a low-cost index fund on the first of every month. You don't overthink the fund selection because you've read enough to know that overthinking fund selection is usually a way of postponing the start. You click confirm. Nothing happens. The account shows your $100. The market moves slightly and your $100 becomes 99.60. You check the app more times than you'd like to admit. This is the beginning, and it looks nothing like what most people imagine when they picture building wealth. Months 1 through 6. The account sits there. You feed it $100 every month, the way you might water a plant you're not entirely sure is growing. Some months the balance is up, some months it's down. 6 months in, the total reads somewhere around $580. You knew it would be around there. The math isn't complicated, but $580 does not feel like progress. It feels like a number quietly living in an app you check less and less because checking it stopped producing any feeling worth seeking. This is the part that nobody makes content about. Because there is nothing to report, the first 6 months of investing a modest amount every month is not a story, it is a habit, and habits, before they produce visible results, produce only themselves. You are building something real, you just cannot see it yet. There is a version of most people's stories where things stop here, not through a deliberate decision to quit. Just a month where the transfer doesn't happen because things were tight, then another month, then the account sits untouched for half a year and the habit quietly dissolves. This version is not a failure of character, it is a very human response to doing something difficult that produces no immediate reward. The gap between knowing what to do and continuing to do it when nothing is visibly rewarding you for it, that is where most people exit. Year 1. 12 months in, you have contributed $1,200. The account reads approximately $1,310. The market cooperated reasonably and you gained around $110 beyond your contributions. You could have earned $110 in a single afternoon of extra work. It is not a dramatic number, you know that, you stay anyway. But here is what the balance doesn't show. You have spent 12 months building a relationship with delayed gratification every month. There was $100 that could have been a meal out, a small treat, something immediately enjoyable, and instead it became a contribution, not because you were more disciplined than other people, because you made a specific decision about a specific amount of money and you kept making it. You also learned something that most people never test. You learned that your life did not get meaningfully harder without that $100. The month didn't fall apart. The things you thought you needed it for largely didn't materialize, and when they did, you found the money some other way. The $100 was never truly load-bearing in your budget. It only felt like it was that discovery, tested 12 times and proven wrong. 12 times is more valuable than the $110 in market returns. Years 2 and 3. 26 months in, contributions total $2,600. The account reads around $3,100. The number has begun to carry some weight, not a life-changing weight, but the kind where you can start to see the shape of something that wasn't there before. Something shifts psychologically in year 2. You stop checking the account out of anxiety and start checking it out of curiosity. That transition is more significant than it sounds. The investor who monitors their portfolio from a place of fear and the investor who checks from a place of calm curiosity are holding the same fund. They are not having the same experience and they will not make the same decisions when the market falls. The market falls. It drops over several weeks, not catastrophically. but enough to feel real. You watch a meaningful portion of your balance evaporate temporarily. The account that read $3,100 reads considerably less. You feel it somewhere between your chest and your stomach. You don't sell, you transfer the $100 on schedule because the schedule was never designed to negotiate with market conditions. That $100 buys more shares than it did 3 months ago because prices are lower. You don't celebrate this, you continue. When the market recovers, your account has grown beyond where it was before the drop. The shares you bought during the difficult months are now worth more than you paid. The discipline of the down months compounded quietly, as it always does. Year 3 ends, contributions total $3,600, account balance approximately $4,750. You are $1,150 ahead of what you contributed. The gap is beginning to widen. Year 5. You are 5 years in, 60 monthly contributions, total invested $6,000, account balance at a historically reasonable average annual return approximately $8,200. You have $2,200 more than you put in. Here is what $8,200 is not. It is not retirement. It is not financial independence. People will correctly point out that $8,200 is a modest number in the context of long-term wealth building, and they will be technically right and completely miss the point. Because $8,200 is not the destination, $8,200 is the proof. The proof that you can build something from very little over a sustained period without exceptional income and without a perfect plan. The proof that the mechanism works when you consistently feed it. The proof that you are the kind of person who keeps going when the results are invisible, when the market falls, and when life gives you reasons to stop. That identity, the person who keeps going, is worth more than the balance, because the identity is what carries forward into every financial decision you will ever make. What changes around you? 5 years in, the account is growing and something else is growing alongside it that has nothing to do with market returns. Your relationship with money is different, not because you have significantly more of it, but because you are conscious of it in a new way. You understand, from lived experience rather than theory, the difference between spending that produces something lasting and spending that produces only the moment. You are not depriving yourself. You went on the trip, you bought the thing. You just made those choices inside a structure that treated the $100 as non-negotiable, not as a sacrifice, but as a prior commitment you respected. Your patience with markets is different. You have now lived through the market rising and the market falling, and your instinct in both directions has changed. You observe rather than react. You understand that a difficult week in the market is information about this week, not about the next decade. Your conversations about money are different. When someone tells you they are waiting for the right moment to start investing, waiting until they have more, until things settle, until it makes more sense, you don't lecture them. You remember what that waiting felt like. You say something honest and move on. Year 10. 10 years in, total contributions $12,000, account balance approximately $20,500. You have $8,500 more than you contributed. Here is the detail worth pausing on. In the last year alone, your portfolio returned roughly $1,700, without a single additional dollar of effort from you, not from a raise, not from extra work, from the shares you've been accumulating for a decade, compounding into each other. Your money is beginning to make money at a rate that approaches what you yourself are contributing monthly. You put in $100. The market, in an average year, is returning the equivalent of $140 a month on your existing balance. You did not move home to achieve this. You did not take a second job. You did not give up the things that made your life feel like yours. You set aside $100 a month and left it alone. The habit is permanent now, not because it requires effort to maintain, but because permanent habits eventually stop feeling like habits. They become part of who you are. Year 20. 20 years in, total contributions $24,000, account balance approximately $76,000. You have $52,000 more than you deposited. The gap between what you put in and what you have is now more than double your total investment. You did not time the market. You did not pick individual stocks. You did not have a mentor who changed everything or an inheritance that gave you a head start. You had $100 a month and 20 years. And here is the part about year 20 that is easy to overlook. The growth is not slowing down, it is accelerating. In year 1, the market returned roughly $110 on your portfolio. In year 10, it returned approximately $1,700. In year 20, the portfolio is returning close to $7,000 annually. You are contributing $1,200 a year. The portfolio is adding $7,000 by itself. The machine has become the primary contributor. You started it with $100 on an ordinary evening, and it has been running ever since. Year 30. 30 years in total contributions, $36,000. Account balance approximately $227,000. The portfolio has produced roughly $191,000 that you never deposited, never earned from a job, and never received as a gift. It grew from the compounding of a habit that started small and continued without interruption. At this point, the portfolio generates approximately $22,700 annually on an average return year. That is nearly $1,900 per month, from money that began as a $100 transfer. The machine you built from pocket change is now producing income that many people work full-time hours to earn. Year 40. 40 years in total contributions across 4 decades, $48,000. Account balance approximately $637,000. $637,000 from $48,000 contributed. The difference, nearly $589,000, was not earned through effort. It was not won. It was not inherited. It grew because of time, and because of your refusal to stop. Every month felt too small to matter. Every market correction felt like a reason to pause. Every year that passed without visible drama produced no headlines and no recognition. Every single transfer happened anyway. All of it stacked, all of it compounded, all of it arrived here. What this is actually about. You have been reading numbers throughout this video. The numbers are real, they matter, and they are not the point. The point is this: most people are waiting for the moment when it finally makes sense to start. The larger paycheck, the bonus, the financial situation that feels stable enough to justify the commitment. That moment has a way of not arriving, and if it does arrive, the habit of waiting tends to arrive with it. The money finds somewhere to go. Nothing is built. Small and consistent is not a consolation prize for people who cannot do more. It is the mechanism. It is how compounding works. The person who begins with $100 a month and the person who waits to begin with $1,000 a month do not arrive at the same place in 40 years. The first person has 4 decades of compounding and a permanent relationship with financial discipline. The second person has an intention that kept being delayed, and the dawning awareness that the one asset truly impossible to recover is time. Time does not wait for you to have the right amount. It runs on whatever you give it. You can give it $100, you can give it every month, you can give it for as long as you are able. And it will give you back something that $100 alone could never buy, or the proof that the smallest version of the right decision, repeated without stopping, becomes something that looks like luck from the outside and feels like discipline from the inside. That is the most ordinary, extraordinary thing a person can do with money. $100 every month starting now. If this gave you something to think about, share it with someone who's been waiting for the right moment to start. Subscribe if you want more straightforward conversations about money. No hype, no shortcuts, just the honest mechanics. I'll see you in the next one.